It has been about 2 weeks since we've had our last construction update of Universal Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida, scheduled to open in the summer of 2025. This is Justin from Adventures Away, and let's jump into today's construction update. Over at the park entrance, on the left side of the park entry gate, the concrete is being poured to form the arches similar to those on the right side. In our next update, we are sure to see the left side mirroring the exact look of the right side. Before getting to this point, though, guests must pass through ticketing and security. The security checkpoint awning that was partially constructed framing on the right side has now been completed, and it looks like the left side is now starting to be formed as well, with the steel framework laid up next to the footers that have been filled with water due to recent storms. Just inside of the entry courtyard inside of Epic Universe, there is some plumbing work going on inside of that first waterfall feature. The workers inside of this feature give depth to how big this feature is actually going to be. After the waterfall flows through this end of the park in front of the Atlantic restaurant, it will land in the retention pond, which will have a bridge over it. However, the bridge is not visible at this current time. The bridge will be a shortcut from Super Nintendo World over to that food court building on the other side of the park. Speaking of Atlantic, it is getting tar on the roof now to complete the waterproofing. To give you context of where the kitchen is compared to this building, the lift that is sitting on top of that pad is actually sitting on top of the kitchen. Guests will enter right around where that lift is and make their way downstairs to the seating area. Next to Atlantic is the rumored quick service dessert shop, where the tent that used to be there, the canopy is gone, the frame is still there. However, it's showing progress that they will start to break ground soon. Over at the dueling roller coaster, the roof work has just about been completed, where they can now do work underneath of the station. Up front, there is a boom currently working on that celestial style theming element. This view gives you a good view of the start and finish of the coaster. The coaster starts in the load station, comes around the two smaller loops right around that theming element towards the first launch. Then when they are coming back, they come back in and go towards the unload bay here. Around the entire coaster track, the concrete walkways have been poured, as well as the landscaping has been completed around them for the periodic track inspections and maintenance. Grass is even starting to grow around these walkways to make the greenery even more vivid. Just outside of the load station, there are some semicircle concrete forms that have appeared since our last update. These shapes do not appear on the proof that has been released by Universal, so we will have to see what will become of these forms. On the other side of Celestial Park, the kiosk that has had a copper roof has been covered in waterproofing, as well as the largest fountain of the three tiered fountains is holding water due to recent storms. Concrete forms have popped up around the outside perimeter of this largest fountain, presumably for theming purposes for the water shows. Behind the main fountain, the waterfall feature in front of the full-service dining location is coming together, with the tiers shaping up into the shape of the waterfall. That will be the start of the water features on this end of the park. Over at the central fountain, the columns that appeared for the splash pad are now being filled in with concrete walls for the foundation, as well as the landscape is starting to be able to take shape on the right side of the fountain on the other side of the carousel. Speaking of the carousel, the scaffolding that was bracing the smaller dome that will hold the entry queue to this attraction has been removed, which means the smaller dome is now fully weight-bearing. Shifting over to Super Nintendo World, there's only been a little bit of work that has been significantly noticeable since our last update, starting with the scaffolding that has been appeared on the exterior next to the left side of the entry portal, which means facade work is starting on the wall, as well as Mount Beanpole has been cladded with that exterior paneling. White sculpting foam has also been found all throughout Super Nintendo World. It is being dispersed through this location and is also staged outside of the land, which I'll point out to you here momentarily. At this yellow arrow is actually where some of this foam is being used. This foam is how we get some of the shapes all over the Mushroom Kingdom, how very round it is. Now that foam is right there on the outside where those blue and yellow tarps are to the left of Super Nintendo World. At the Yoshi's Adventure ride, some exterior theming has appeared as well as a rooftop element. More should appear all throughout the coming updates. Shifting over to the Donkey Kong Minecart roller coaster, there have been a couple of minor changes that we have noticed since our last update. First being that the food stand in front of the coaster near the water feature has been poured. It was just a form last time. There is also some metal framing that is staged next to the coaster. More than likely this is facade work for the temple. There has also been a sighting of a ride vehicle. This is to believe to be the actual ride vehicle, since this is still covered completely with protective coverings. Now transporting over to the classic Monsters land, the broken bridge behind the entry portal is continuing to get its framing. As well as the entry portal itself seems to have gotten some concrete work. The most noticeable changes in Universal Monsters this update is around Curse of the Werewolf spinning roller coaster. There has been some framing additions for theming elements added to the entry back into the load station. There is a ride envelope visible to ensure that the framing elements are out of reach of riders. There has also been some steel framing pop up in front of the load station when you come out of the load station as well. The forest around Curse the Werewolf is growing week by week as well. Over at the feature ride building, a concrete column has appeared near the ride entry. If you look closely between the scaffolding, you can actually see some of the Gothic styling theming elements that will be shown around the entire building. Over at the Burning Blades Tavern, scaffolding is starting to surround the framing of the thought-to-be windmill on top of the tavern. So in our next couple updates, we should be able to start seeing what this windmill will look like. Right next door at the Parks and Park Hotel, more floors have been poured for guest rooms. We are on about floor 6 now. The hotel has been making constant progress throughout the weeks, averaging about one floor every 2 weeks or so. The lobby entrance out back is beginning to have that extension that we thought would be constructed. Over in Epic Universe's Wizarding World, there has been significant visual progress made this week. The replica arch has received some of its facade work, as well as the backside of these buildings has received its exterior paneling. Not only are these buildings being cladded in the backside, there is actual glass windows being installed on some of these buildings on the courtyard side. Inside of this courtyard, only accessible through an alley in the main part of the park where the food service location will be, you can actually see how some of these buildings will look. This big aerial overview of Wizarding World gives you a great idea of where the Ministry of Magic ride is, the theater location, as well as the area for possible expansion. Next door at the Isle of Berk, the lagoon has been flooded just like the other fountains throughout the park due to the recent storms. The roller coaster is a good view here of how it goes through the lagoon, loops around, and comes back into the second launch. The boat ride entrance is being paneled for weatherproofing as well. All throughout the park, wire mesh is being added to the exterior of the buildings for the rock work. This can be seen on the exterior of the quick service food restaurant, as well as on the exterior of Mead Hall, which is the main dining location of the land. More theming elements are being placed around the boat ride entrance, with these logs being staged around the area to be added. Framing has been added in front of Mead Hall as the entrance and exit as well. For the boat ride, guests will enter that recently exterior paneled structure and will more than likely take some stairs down to the entry of the boat ride. Around the land's coaster's second launch, more of this rockwork has become visible, as well as more of the wire mesh for new rockwork is being placed. Around the lagoon splash, more of the theming elements have been placed. More trees have been added around the load station, as well as the theming elements around the first launch. Guests will come out of the load station, loop around, and into the first launch of this roller coaster. Just outside of the land, there are trees staged to be planted around the roller coaster, which means that more trees will be planted. Back over at Mead Hall, more and more of this rockwork wire mesh has been visible and is being added to the building, as well as the candy shop next door. Lastly, going to the two off-site hotels, Stella Luna and Stella Nova. The exterior tiles have almost made it to the end of the first hotel. The second hotel has made vertical progress on that section they have yet to start, which means in our next update, more than likely, it'll be complete. These are some pictures I actually took that match up with Bio Reconstruct's pictures he posted here recently. If you haven't already, make sure you watch my Epic Universe overview of each land and what you can expect. Be sure to subscribe for more Epic Universe news and updates. Until next time, have a great one.